Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining me for the latest episode of the Withstand podcast. We are continuing to read through the wonderful book of Genesis. In our last episode, we finished up at verse 32. Today we are picking up from verse 33 and we'll read through all the way to the end of the chapter. And this is God's word. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols, put them in the camel saddle, and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is with me. And he searched, but did not find the household idols. Then Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued me? Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. These 20 years I have been with you, your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have set me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labour of my hands, and rebuked you last night. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock. All that you see is mine. But what can I do this day to these my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? Now therefore, come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Then Jacob said to his brethren, Gather stones. And they took up stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. Laban called it Jegar-Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore its name was called Galeed, also Mizpah, because he said, May the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, Here is this heap, and here is this pillar, which I place between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judged between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain, and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning Laban arose and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. This is the word of the Lord. And Dr Thomas Constable writes, Since Rachel had stolen Laban's gods, she hid them successfully while Laban searched for them among Jacob's possessions. Rachel too, as well as Jacob and Laban, was deceitful. Jacob and Rachel are again two of a kind. This time both almost bring ruin on the family by their risk-taking, she by her rash theft, he by his rash vow, his son's rash vow in chapter 44. The teraphim was already nothing gods, but they became unclean and suffered humiliation when Rachel, who claimed to be unclean, sat on them while menstruating. It is still very common for Arabs to hide stolen property under the paddling of their saddles. I have known many such thefts of modern teraphim, or pictures and images, and by women too. And why not? It is surely not absurd to steal the gods whose aid you invoke to assist you to steal other things. Whereas Laban is fiercely devoted to his gods, it is God who has stripped him of his wealth and given it to his daughters. Then Jacob became angry and proceeded to argue his innocence and explain his actions to Laban. Under traditional ancient Near Eastern law, a shepherd was not held responsible for losses to his master's flocks due to attacking wild beasts and, in some cases, thieves. Yet Jacob had borne these losses. Laban had not only cheated Jacob, but he demanded compensation from Jacob for dead animals that Jacob was not personally responsible for. God has corked the bottle of his, as in Laban's, aggressiveness with Jacob's comments. The NJPS version of the Bible interpreted 10 times as a round number and translated it time and time again. The Hebrew version is literally 10 times. Jacob concluded his defense by giving the God of his grandfather Abraham, whom he also described as the fear of Isaac, the God whom Isaac feared, as in worshipped, credit for preserving and prospering him. He said that God had seen him through all the 20 years that he had been with Laban and had rendered judgment in favour of him by restraining Laban. Note the similarity between Jacob's escape from Laban and his descendants' escape from Egypt in the Exodus. Jacob believed that he was innocent until proved guilty, but Laban felt he was guilty until proven innocent. Jacob's words in this verse summarize his whole life in Padan Aram, addressing the issue of Jacob and Laban using lies to achieve their ends. Asahoto and Negoah wrote the following: "These persons cannot be our examples in all areas, for they were still toddlers in their knowledge of God. They had never been given the 10 Commandments, nor had they heard the Sermon on the Mount. Thus we who have a far fuller revelation of God's will through Jesus Christ need to respond to the bad behavior of people like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Rachel, as we would respond to toddlers who do something that we as adults know is wrong. We do not hold a toddler responsible in the same way we would an adult, nor do we think that their behavior is a model for us to imitate. Rather, we acknowledge that what the child has done is wrong, and then we allow them to experience grace from us as we continue to train them in right and wrong. The end never justified the means, but God's grace works in imperfect people." Laban's frustration comes out in this verse. True, everything that Jacob possessed had been Laban's, but Laban had given his daughters to Jacob, and Jacob had worked for and been paid the flocks that he now owned. Laban had no legitimate claim on any of these things. Jacob and Laban then made a parity covenant, or a peace treaty, at Laban's request. They set up a memorial stone, so-called standing stone, to mark the spot, gathered stones in a heap, and ate a meal together as part of the rite involved in establishing a covenant. They may have erected the heap of stones, both as a table for the meal and as a memorial of the event. Standing stones or stone pillars sometimes marked supposed dwelling places of the gods, and cairns, stone heaps, often marked graves. Galeed, which is also known as witness heap, is the name from which Gilead came. Gilead became a common name for this mountainous area east of the Jordan River, between the Sea of Galilee. Hebrew for Leah, denoting the shape of the lake, and the dead salt sea. Jegar Sahadutha means witness heap in Aramaic. The so-called Mizpah, a literal interpretation meaning watchtower or outlook point, blessing, was not really a promise between friends, but a warning between antagonists who did not trust each other. Laban and Jacob called on God to keep each other true to the terms of the covenant that they had just made. May the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. They could not check on each other themselves. This covenant also might be called a non-aggression pact. It is impossible to avoid noticing the curious misconception of the term Mizpah, which characterizes its use today. As used for a motto on rings, Christmas cards, and even as the title of an organization, it is interpreted to mean union, trust, fellowship, while its original meaning was that of separation, distrust, and warning. Two men, neither of whom trusted the other, said in effect, "I cannot trust you out of my sight. The Lord must be the watchman between us if we and our goods are to be kept safe from each other." Laban swore by the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor. Abraham and Nahor were brothers, and the God of their father. Abraham was Jacob's ancestor and Nahor was Laban's ancestor. Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, the God whom his father Isaac feared. Perhaps Jacob described God as he did in order to highlight the difference between himself and Laban. They each had their own designation of God. Apparently the sacrifice that Jacob offered and the meal associated with it were the concluding part of the covenant-making ritual. The next morning, Laban said his goodbyes and departed for his home. This chapter teaches that those who are obediently following God's call and are experiencing his blessing can be confident that he will protect them. And I'll leave the link to those notes in the show notes, guys. Now, given one of the big lessons in this chapter is about obedience and, of course, obeying God, and as Charles Stanley often says, leaving the consequences to him, today's daily devotion is titled Wholehearted Obedience, and it's based on 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And it reads, "Whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith." And Dr. Stanley writes, "When you serve God, do you do so wholeheartedly or only partially? It's important for you to be aware that to the Lord, partial obedience is actually disobedience. For example, when the armies of Aram threatened to attack Israel, King Joash went to see the prophet Elisha. Elisha told Joash to shoot an arrow out of the eastern window because he proclaimed, 'This is the Lord's arrow, an arrow of victory over Aram. Now pick up the other arrows and strike them against the ground.' In other words, Elijah challenged Joash to shoot the remaining arrows into the earth as a sign of his trust that God would win the battle. Sadly, Joash shot only 3 of the arrows and held the rest back, demonstrating that he really didn't believe the Lord's provision. And because of his lack of faith, he failed to achieve a complete victory over the enemy armies. Don't make the same mistake. When God tells you to do something, have faith and do it thoroughly. With wholehearted obedience comes not only the fullness of his blessing, but complete victory." And he prays, "Jesus, I will trust you and obey you wholeheartedly. Thank you for the victory. Amen." Until next time, guys, God bless you all, and Maranatha.